The frigid night air stung Thea Adams's bare feet as she fled through the mountain pines, her wedding dress torn and mudded, her lungs burning with each desperate breath. Behind her, the sounds of angry voices echoed through the wilderness outside Westcliff, Colorado. The year was 1875, and she'd just committed what many would consider the ultimate humiliation, leaving a wealthy man at the altar. "I'll find you, you ungrateful wretch." Walter Higgins's voice carried through the darkness, making Thea's heart pound harder against her ribs. She'd never wanted to marry Walter. At 38, he was nearly twice her age of 20, and his proposal had been anything but romantic. It had been a business arrangement between him and her father, who'd fallen into debt after her mother's passing. Walter owned half the businesses in town, including the saloon where her father had gambled away their meager savings. A sharp rock cut into her foot, and Thea bit back a cry. The full moon illuminated her path just enough to avoid the largest obstacles, but the forest floor was unforgiving on her bare soles. She'd kicked off her wedding shoes minutes after her escape. The dainty satin things were never meant for running. The sound of horses' hooves spurred her onward. Walter had money for search parties, for men willing to track her down like a wayward animal. Her only hope was to find shelter before they found her, or before the cold night claimed her life. "Please," she whispered to the stars above, "please help me." The world seemed to answer with cruel indifference as her foot caught on a tree root, sending her tumbling down a ravine. She rolled, the wedding dress that had cost more than her father's cabin tangling around her legs. When she finally came to a stop, the wind knocked from her lungs. Thea lay still for a moment, dazed and aching. "Who's there?" A deep voice cut through the night. Thea froze, her breath catching in her throat. A figure emerged from between the trees, tall and imposing in the moonlight. A man, broad-shouldered and hatted, a rifle held casually in his hands. "I said, who's there?" he repeated, approaching cautiously. Thea tried to stand to run, but her ankle gave way beneath her. A small cry escaped her lips as she crumpled to the ground. The man moved faster now, closing the distance between them. As he drew nearer, the moonlight revealed a face much younger than she'd expected, perhaps 25, with a strong jaw shadowed by stubble and eyes that caught the starlight. "Madam." His voice softened with surprise as he took in her bedraggled appearance. "Are you all right?" Thea tried to speak, but exhaustion and fear had stolen her voice. The sounds of the search party grew louder. The stranger glanced in the direction of the commotion, then back at Thea. Understanding dawned in his eyes as he observed her torn wedding dress and frightened expression. "You're running from someone," he stated simply. Thea managed a nod, her eyes pleading. Without hesitation, the man set down his rifle and knelt before her. "I'm Beau Grant," he said, his voice low and steady. "I have a cabin not far from here. I can help you if you'll let me." The voices were drawing closer. Thea had no choice but to trust this stranger. "Please," she whispered. Beau nodded once, then, with surprising gentleness, swept her into his arms. Her wedding dress spilled over his forearms like a waterfall of silk and lace. "Hold tight," he murmured, retrieving his rifle with one hand while keeping her secure with the other. Then he was moving, swift and sure-footed through the dark forest, carrying her away from her pursuers and into an uncertain future. Beau's cabin sat nestled in a clearing surrounded by ponderosa pines, far enough from town to offer solitude but close enough to make trips for supplies manageable. As he shouldered open the door, Thea caught the warm scent of wood smoke and something like cinnamon. "It's not much," Beau said, setting her down carefully on a chair by the hearth, "but it's safe." The cabin was small but tidy, a single room with a bed in one corner, a wooden table with 2 chairs, and a modest kitchen area. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, casting the room in a warm orange glow. Thea watched as Beau moved to a trunk at the foot of his bed, pulling out a clean blanket. "You're shivering," he said, draping it over her shoulders. "Let me tend to your feet." He filled a basin with water and knelt before her, gently lifting one of her mud-caked feet. Thea winced as the water touched her cuts. "I'm sorry," Beau murmured. "These need cleaning." His touch was careful as he washed away the dirt and blood. Thea studied his face in the firelight. He was handsome, in a rugged way, with brown hair that curled slightly at the ends and a straight nose that had clearly been broken at least once. "You have questions," Thea said finally, her voice small in the quiet cabin. Beau glanced up at her, then returned his attention to her injured feet. "It's not my place to pry. I ran away from my wedding," she offered anyway. "My father arranged it to settle his debts." Beau's hands paused briefly before continuing their gentle work. "To Walter Higgins, I'm guessing." Thea's eyes widened. "You know him?" "Everyone within 50 miles knows Walter Higgins," Beau said, his voice carefully neutral. "He owns more of Westcliff than most folks are comfortable with, including the ranch that once belonged to my family." Thea watched as he bandaged her feet with strips of clean cloth. "I couldn't marry him," she whispered. "I just couldn't." "You shouldn't have to," Beau said simply. He rose and moved to the stove. "You must be hungry." "I don't have much, but there's stew from earlier." Thea's stomach rumbled at the mention of food, reminding her she hadn't eaten since breakfast. Too nervous about the wedding she never intended to go through with. As Beau ladled stew into a bowl, Thea asked, "Won't they come looking here?" Beau set the bowl before her. "Most folks don't know about this place. I keep to myself." He poured her a cup of water. "Eat. We'll figure things out after you've had some rest." The stew was simple but delicious venison with root vegetables and herbs. Thea hadn't realized how hungry she was until the first spoonful touched her lips. She ate quickly, conscious of Beau's gaze occasionally drifting to the window, listening for sounds of pursuit. "Why are you helping me?" she asked when she'd finished. "You don't know me." Beau took her empty bowl, rinsing it in a basin of water. "My mother was forced to marry a man she didn't love," he said quietly. "It didn't end well for her." He turned to face Thea, his expression solemn. "No one should be forced into marriage." Thea felt a lump form in her throat. "Thank you," she whispered. Beau nodded once, then gestured to the bed. "You should rest. I'll keep watch." "I can't take your bed. You can and you will," he said firmly. "You're injured and exhausted. I'll manage fine in the chair." Too tired to argue further, Thea allowed him to help her to the bed. The mattress was firm but comfortable, and the sheets smelled of pine and fresh air. "What's your name?" Beau asked as he pulled a quilt over her. "Thea," she murmured, her eyelids already growing heavy. "Thea Adams." "Sleep well, Thea Adams," Beau said softly. As she drifted towards sleep, Thea realized she felt safer in this stranger's cabin than she had in her own home for a long time. Dawn broke over the mountains, filtering golden light through the cabin's single window. Thea awoke slowly, momentarily disoriented by her surroundings until memories of the previous night came flooding back. She sat up, wincing as the movement sent pain shooting through her battered body. Beau stood at the stove, his back to her. The scent of coffee and frying bacon filled the small space. "Good morning," he said without turning around. "How are your feet?" Thea wiggled her toes experimentally. "Sore, but better." Beau nodded, flipping the bacon in the cast iron skillet. "There's water in that basin if you'd like to wash up, and I've set out some clothes that might fit you." Thea noticed the neatly folded stack of fabric on the chair beside the bed, a man's shirt and trousers, clearly too large for her, but infinitely more practical than her ruined wedding dress. "Thank you," she said, carefully swinging her legs over the side of the bed. Her ankle protested but held her weight when she tested it. After washing her face and hands in the cold water, Thea changed behind a screen Beau had tactfully set up for her privacy. The clothes engulfed her small frame, but with the sleeves rolled up and the trousers belted tight, they would serve. When she emerged, Beau had breakfast waiting on the table: bacon, biscuits, and strong black coffee. "You must think me terribly improper," Thea said as she took a seat. "Running from my wedding, spending the night alone with a man I just met, wearing men's clothing." Beau's mouth quirked in a small smile. "I think you brave," he corrected, "and practical." He took a sip of his coffee. "Though I'm afraid your reputation in Westcliff might be beyond salvaging." Thea stared into her coffee cup. "I can't go back there," she said quietly. "I thought as much." Beau broke a biscuit in half. "Do you have family elsewhere, friends who might take you in?" Thea shook her head. "My mother died 2 years ago, my father." She swallowed hard. He made it clear where his loyalties lie. "I'm sorry." They ate in silence for a few minutes. Thea observed Beau covertly over the rim of her cup. In daylight, she could see him more clearly: the sun-browned skin that spoke of long days outdoors, the calluses on his hands, the way his eyes crinkled slightly at the corners when he concentrated. Not handsome in the conventional way Walter Higgins considered himself to be, but something more genuine, more real. "I'm leaving Westcliff," Beau said suddenly, setting down his cup. "I've been planning it for a while. There's nothing here for me anymore." Thea felt a strange twist in her chest. "Where will you go?" "North, to Wyoming territory. I have a friend who needs help establishing a horse ranch." He met her eyes directly. "You could come with me." Thea's breath caught. "I hardly know you." "True enough," Beau acknowledged. "But Walter Higgins doesn't strike me as the type to forgive being jilted at the altar. Colorado might not be big enough for you to hide." The reality of her situation settled on Thea's shoulders like a physical weight. Walter was powerful, vengeful, and had resources she couldn't hope to match. And what future could she possibly have here now? An unmarried woman with no family support, no money, and a ruined reputation. "I couldn't impose." "It's not an imposition," Beau interrupted gently. "I was leaving anyway, and 2 travelers are safer than 1. He hesitated. "I have a wagon, supplies. I'll be setting off in 2 days. You'd be welcome to join me." Thea studied his face, searching for any hint of deception or ulterior motive. She found none, only a straightforward offer of help from a man who seemed to understand what it meant to start over. "Why?" she asked simply. Beau's expression grew distant. "After Higgins took our ranch, my father drank himself to death. My mother died of fever the following winter. I stayed to try to rebuild something, but—" he shook his head. "Some places hold too many ghosts." Thea understood that feeling all too well. "I'd pay my way," she said firmly. "I can cook, so work hard. I won't be a burden." Beau's smile reached his eyes this time. "I never thought you would be." Their quiet breakfast was interrupted by the sound of hoofbeats approaching the cabin. Beau was on his feet in an instant, reaching for his rifle. "Stay back," he ordered, moving to the window. Thea's heart hammered as she pressed herself against the wall beside the hearth, out of view from the windows. "1 rider," Beau reported, his voice low. "Not Higgins." A moment later came a knock at the door. "Beau, you in there?" Beau visibly relaxed, though he kept his rifle in hand as he opened the door. A man in a dusty sheriff's uniform stood on the threshold, his expression grim. "Morning, Tom," Beau said evenly. "What brings you all the way out here?" Sheriff Tom Evans removed his hat, running a hand through his graying hair. "There's a search party out looking for a runaway bride," he said, his eyes moving past Beau to where Thea stood in her borrowed clothes. "Seems I've found her." Thea felt the blood drain from her face. The sheriff was Walter's cousin by marriage. There would be no sympathy from that quarter. Beau didn't move from the doorway. She came here of her own free will, Tom. I don't doubt it, the sheriff replied, his voice weary. But Walter's claiming she was kidnapped. Says she's not in her right mind, that someone took advantage of her delicate condition. That's a lie, Thea exclaimed, stepping forward despite her fear. I left because I didn't want to marry him. No one forced me. The sheriff's expression softened slightly. I figured as much. Walter's not well liked among the womenfolk. He sighed heavily. But he's got money and influence, Miss Adams, and your father's backing his story. Beau's posture remained rigid. What are you here for, Tom? To arrest her for refusing to be sold like cattle? The sheriff's eyes narrowed. Watch yourself, Beau. I'm here as a courtesy. Walter's got a dozen men combing these hills. They find her here. There'll be trouble I can't control. So what do you suggest? Beau asked. The sheriff looked between them, then lowered his voice. The stage coach to Denver leaves at noon. If someone were to be on it, someone traveling light and fast, they might get a decent head start. Thea stared at him in surprise. You're helping me. Sheriff Evans replaced his hat. Let's just say I knew your mother, Miss Adams. She wouldn't have wanted this for you. He turned to go, then paused. I never saw you, understand. Far as I know, you headed west, not east. After the sheriff departed, Beau moved swiftly around the cabin, gathering supplies. We need to leave now, he said, tossing essential items into a pack. That stage coach is our best chance. Thea began helping, her movements hampered by her sore feet. Why are you risking so much for me? Beau paused, looking at her directly. Because it's the right thing to do. His expression softened. And because you deserve a chance at freedom. Within the hour, they had packed what they could carry and doused the fire. Beau helped Thea onto his horse, then mounted behind her. His arms encircled her as he took the reins, and despite their desperate circumstances, Thea felt an unexpected flutter in her chest at his nearness. They rode hard through the forest, taking a circuitous route to avoid the search parties. Beau's knowledge of the local terrain proved invaluable as he guided them through ravines and across shallow streams to mask their trail. By mid-morning, they reached the outskirts of a small settlement east of Westcliff. The stage-coach station was little more than a wooden platform with a bench, but to Thea, it represented escape. Beau tied his horse behind the station's small office. Wait here, he instructed, handing Thea the reins. I'll get the tickets. Thea watched him stride toward the ticket counter, his broad shoulders squared with determination. In the short time she'd known him, Beau Grant had shown her more kindness than she'd experienced in years. The realization made her chest ache with something she couldn't quite name. Beau returned, 2 tickets in hand. Stage arrives in 20 minutes, he said. We'll need to, he broke off abruptly, his gaze fixed on something beyond her. Thea turned to see a cloud of dust in the distance, riders approaching fast. It's them, Beau said grimly. Walter must have guessed we'd head this way. Panic gripped Thea's heart. What do we do? Beau's eyes scanned their surroundings, calculating. The stage isn't due for 20 minutes. They'll be here in 10. His jaw set in a hard line. We need to split up. No, Thea protested. I won't leave you to face them alone. Listen to me, Beau said urgently, taking her hands in his. You take my horse and ride hard for Miller's Crossing. It's a half-day's ride northeast. There's a woman there, Martha Wilson, who runs a boarding house. Tell her I sent you. She'll help. But what about you? I'll stay and delay them, Beau said. Make them think you're still here, waiting for the stage. Once it arrives, I'll follow. Thea shook her head, tears threatening. They'll hurt you. Walter wants you, not me, Beau's voice gentled. I'll be fine, but you need to go now. The approaching riders grew closer. Thea knew they had no choice. With Beau's help, she mounted his horse. "Wait for me at Martha's," Beau said, adjusting the stirrups for her shorter legs. "3 days, if I'm not there by then." "You will be," Thea insisted. On impulse, she leaned down and pressed a quick kiss to his cheek. "Be careful." Beau's expression softened for a brief moment. Then he slapped the horse's flank. "Go!" Thea rode hard, letting the horse have its head as they galloped away from the station. She didn't look back, though every fiber of her being wanted to. The horse seemed to understand the urgency, maintaining a steady pace even as they left the road for rougher terrain. Hours passed. Thea's body ached from the unaccustomed riding, her bandaged feet throbbing in the stirrups. But fear drove her onward, following Beau's directions as best she could. Northeast, toward Miller's Crossing. The sun was low on the horizon when she finally spotted the small settlement ahead, a cluster of buildings surrounded by scattered farms. Relief flooded through her as she guided the tired horse toward the town. Martha Wilson's boarding house wasn't hard to find. It was the largest building on the main street, a 2-story structure with a wide porch and neat curtains in the windows. Thea dismounted stiffly, wincing as her feet touched the ground. The door opened before she could knock, revealing a stout woman with iron-gray hair pulled into a severe bun. Sharp eyes took in Thea's disheveled appearance, her men's clothing, and the exhausted horse. "You must be in some kind of trouble," the woman said bluntly. Thea straightened her shoulders. "Are you Martha Wilson? Beau Grant sent me." Martha's eyebrows rose slightly. "Did he now? And where is that boy?" "He's coming," Thea said, praying it was true. "He stayed behind to divert some men who were pursuing me." Martha studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Well, come in then. No sense standing out here where everyone can see you." The interior of the boarding house was warm and smelled of fresh bread. Martha led Thea to a small parlor off the main hallway, gesturing for her to sit. "I expect you'll be wanting to clean up," she said, eyeing Thea's borrowed clothes with disapproval. "And proper attire. But first, you'll tell me exactly what kind of trouble you've brought to my doorstep." Thea hesitated, then decided honesty was her only option. She told Martha everything: the arranged marriage to Walter, her escape, how Beau had found and helped her. Martha listened without interruption, her expression giving nothing away. When Thea finished, the older woman sighed deeply. "Walter Higgins," she said, shaking her head. "That man's been a thorn in decent folks' sides for years." She eyed Thea sharply. "You were right to run." Relief washed over Thea. "Then you'll help me." "I'll help you both," Martha confirmed. "Beau's father was a good man before Higgins broke him. The boy deserves better than what Colorado's given him." She rose, all business now. "You'll stay in the back room. Few people come through here, but better safe than sorry. I'll have a bath brought up for you, and some of my niece's clothes should fit well enough." As Martha bustled off to make arrangements, Thea sank deeper into the chair, exhaustion finally overtaking her. 3 days, Beau had said. 3 days to wait and wonder if he was safe, if he would come for her as promised. For the first time since fleeing her wedding, Thea allowed herself to consider what might come next. A new life in Wyoming territory, far from Walter's reach. Freedom to choose her own path. And Beau, what place would he have in that future? The thought brought an unexpected warmth to her cheeks. She hardly knew him, yet in their brief time together, he had shown himself to be honorable, kind, and brave. Qualities she had given up hoping to find in any man after her father's betrayal. "Don't get ahead of yourself, Thea Adams," she murmured, rising stiffly as Martha returned to show her to her room. First, she needed to survive the present. The future would have to wait. The first day of waiting passed slowly. Thea helped Martha with household tasks, grateful for the distraction. The older woman proved to be a repository of local knowledge. including several unflattering stories about Walter Higgins that confirmed Thea's escape had been the right decision. That man's first wife died under suspicious circumstances, Martha confided as they kneaded bread dough in the kitchen. Nothing that could be proven, mind you, but she was young and healthy until she married him. Thea shuddered, remembering Walter's cold eyes and how his fingers would dig into her arm when she displeased him, which was often. "What about Beau?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "You knew his family." Martha's hand stilled momentarily. "The Grants were good people, hardworking, had one of the finest horse ranches in the county until Higgins engineered their downfall." Her expression softened. "Beau was just a boy then, maybe 16. Watched everything his family built get torn away. That changes a person." "He's a good man," Thea said quietly. Martha gave her a knowing look. "Yes, he is, one of the few left." She returned to her kneading. "Rest of them seem to think having money or power gives them the right to take whatever they want, be it land or women." By the second day, Thea found herself constantly drawn to the windows, searching the road for any sign of Beau. Martha noticed but said nothing, merely ensuring Thea stayed occupied with tasks away from public view. That evening, as they sat by the fire after the other boarders had retired, Martha suddenly asked, "What will you do if he comes?" Thea looked up from her mending. "We plan to go to Wyoming territory. Beau has a friend starting a horse ranch there." "And after that?" Martha pressed. "I don't know," Thea admitted. "I haven't thought beyond escape." Martha nodded slowly. "That boy cares for you, you know, more than he probably realizes himself." Heat rose to Thea's cheeks. "We barely know each other." "Sometimes that doesn't matter," Martha said, her voice softening. "Sometimes you just know." She sighed, looking into the fire. "My Henry and I courted for all of 2 weeks before we married. Everyone said we were rushing in, that it wouldn't last. We had 47 years together before he passed." Thea thought of Beau's gentle hands tending her injured feet, the protective way he'd positioned himself between her and danger, the respect with which he'd treated her from the moment they met. "I think I could love him," she whispered, surprising herself with the admission. Martha smiled, satisfied. "Then I hope he makes it here, girl. Lord knows you both deserve some happiness." Dawn broke on the third day with no sign of Beau. Thea tried to maintain hope as she went about her chores, but by midday, anxiety had taken firm hold. What if Walter's men had caught him? What if he was hurt? Or worse? She was hanging laundry in the back garden, trying to keep her hands busy, when she heard Martha call her name. There was something in the older woman's voice that made Thea drop the wet sheet she was holding and run to the front of the house. A rider was approaching slowly, his figure slumped in the saddle. Even at a distance, Thea recognized him. "Beau!" she cried, lifting her skirts and running toward him. He looked up at the sound of her voice, and even through the dust and exhaustion on his face, his smile blazed bright. He dismounted stiffly, and Thea saw with alarm that his shirt was torn and blood-stained. "You're hurt," she said, reaching him and gently touching his arm. "It's not as bad as it looks," Beau assured her, though his grimace betrayed him. "Just a few bruises and a graze from a bullet that got too friendly." "A bullet?" Thea gasped. "Walter shot at you." "Walter and 3 of his men caught up with me after the stagecoach left," Beau explained, leading his horse toward the boarding house where Martha waited on the porch. "They were unhappy to find you weren't with me." His understated tone couldn't disguise the danger he'd faced. Thea felt sick imagining what must have happened. "How did you get away?" A wry smile touched Beau's lips. "Turns out Walter's men aren't particularly loyal when facing someone who fights back. And Walter himself has always been better at giving orders than following through." His expression sobered. "But they'll keep looking. We should leave tomorrow first light." Martha ushered them inside, immediately taking charge of Beau's injuries. The bullet had indeed only grazed his side, but he had numerous bruises and a split lip that suggested a serious fight. As Martha cleaned and bandaged the wound, Beau's eyes remained fixed on Thea, as though reassuring himself she was truly safe. "I was afraid you wouldn't come," Thea admitted when Martha left to prepare a meal for them. "I promised I would," Beau said simply. Thea moved closer to him, drawn by something she couldn't name. "Why did you really help me, Beau? The truth." Beau was silent for a moment, his eyes studying her face. "When I found you in those woods," he said finally, "barefoot and desperate but still fighting, I recognized something in you. The same thing I see in myself every day, the refusal to let someone else decide your fate." He took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against hers. "And then, as I got to know you even in such a short time, I saw your kindness, your strength. How could I not help you?" Thea's heart thundered in her chest. "And now, why are you still helping me?" Beau's gaze dropped to their joined hands. "Because somewhere between finding you in those woods and now I realized I don't want to be without you." He looked up, vulnerability clear in his eyes. "I know it's fast. Probably foolish. But if you'd consider coming to Wyoming not just for safety, but to see if there might be something between us." Thea didn't let him finish. She leaned forward and pressed her lips to his, careful of his injured mouth. The kiss was gentle, questioning but filled with promise. When she pulled back, Beau's eyes were wide with wonder. "I'll take that as a yes," he asked, a smile tugging at his lips. "Yes," Thea confirmed, her own smile breaking through like sunshine. "Though Martha would say we're rushing in." Beau chuckled. "We'll take it as slow as you need. Wyoming's a big place. We'll have time." The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, Thea and Beau bid farewell to Martha. The older woman pressed a package of food into their hands and hugged Thea fiercely. "You write to me when you're settled," she instructed. "And don't let this one get away. Good men are rare as hen's teeth out here." They left Miller's Crossing as the town was just beginning to stir, heading north toward a future neither had imagined days before. The road would be long and not without danger. Walter Higgins wasn't a man to forget a slight, but together they faced the journey with hope. Beau reached across the space between their horses, offering his hand. Thea took it, marveling at how natural it felt, how right. "Ready?" he asked. Thea looked ahead at the open country stretching before them, then back at the man beside her, the cowboy who had found her barefoot and carried her home, who had risked everything to give her a chance at freedom and, unexpectedly, at love. "Ready," she answered, and meant it with all her heart. 5 years later, Thea stood on the porch of their Wyoming ranch house, watching as Beau taught their 3-year-old son, Thomas, to sit astride his first pony. The little boy's delighted laughter carried across the yard, making her smile. Their ranch had flourished beyond expectations. Beau's knowledge of horses, combined with Thea's head for business, had turned the struggling operation into one of the most respected breeding programs in the territory. The nightmare of Walter Higgins had faded with time and distance, especially after news reached them 2 years ago that he had died of heart failure alone and bitter to the end. Thea's hand rested on her swollen belly, feeling the gentle kicks of their second child. Life had given her so much more than she'd ever dared hope for when she'd fled through those Colorado woods barefoot and terrified. As if sensing her thoughts, Beau looked up from where he was adjusting Thomas's grip on the reins. The love in his eyes, even after all this time, still made her breath catch. "Come join us, Mrs. Grant," he called, his smile warm in the afternoon sun. Mrs. Grant. The name still filled her with joy, a name she had chosen freely, with a man who had earned her heart through kindness and respect. Thea stepped off the porch, moving toward her family and the life she had built, one careful step at a time. From the moment a barefoot bride found courage in the wilderness and a cowboy offered his hand in the darkness.